It's a really interesting video, actually.
Yeah, because it's unlike any, I mean, 80% is not going to provide you with that experience.
Yeah, for 80%, which is what we get here, you'll actually barely notice the sky getting dark. But in fact, we're going to simulate that in the planetarium next week. So you can see, actually we're going to do it on Friday night too. This Friday, if any of you are planning to go to the planetarium, we're going to run a simulation on the planetarium of what it looks like in totality versus here in Los Alamos. So we'll do that too.
The main talk is on summer dark night.
Yeah, tomorrow night is stars you can see in the sky and what they're going to look at the dark night Saturday evening down in White Rock. But we're also going to take the last 10 minutes or so and talk about the eclipse. There are also some links on this page to some eclipse simulators. And these things you can just go on the web, go to the simulators, and there are a couple of them that will show you a close-up of the eclipse happening, what it's like with and without totality. There's another one that I really like that you can just type in the name, the city, where your relatives live or where you're going to be or whatever. It will show you what the whole environment looks like around you, how dark it gets, what the eclipse looks like in the sky, and so on. And if you're in the path of totality, it's just dramatic. In the last 2 seconds before totality, it suddenly goes black and you can see the stars around the sun. So it's really kind of a cool thing. So that's this handout if you want to get it on the way out, on the table. Yeah.
Do you know, would there be any experiments to try to replicate what Sir Arthur did in 1919 to look at the angular?
Yeah, I don't know. For those of you who are not aware, Einstein's theory of relativity was published in 1915, and Sir Arthur Eddington was an astronomer at the time, very famous astronomer, and he led an expedition to photograph the skies, the stars basically, during a total solar eclipse. And Einstein's point of view was, in general relativity, as the starlight passes the sun, it will be deflected by gravity, and that deflection will be different than without general relativity, with Newtonian physics, for those of you who know what that means. So this deflection means if you're on the Earth looking back, the stars are slightly shifted in a slightly different place. So they did that photograph, and he proved that it was exactly what was predicted by Einstein. And it was just, that's when Einstein became a famous person and a household word and so on. Right. That was replicated in the next eclipse by the astronomers at Lick Observatory in California. They went to another expedition. There were 5 others after that. They all made the same measurements. They all got the same thing. And that was through about 1930. And then they just said, well, we keep getting the same number, we give up. Einstein must have been right. We tried. We can't get rid of it. So I don't know of any experiments now, but there certainly have been many in the past. So I wanted to mention one other sort of scientific citizen science project. That's called the Eclipse Mega Movie, and I'm on the team for that. We, instead of having 68 people with very specialized equipment that's very consistent, we're kind of into everybody on their own kind of thing. Anarchy, I guess, is the right word. So what we have is we have 800 people who have DSLRs, digital cameras with interchangeable lenses, with telephoto lenses within certain limits, solid tripod mounts or even tracking mounts, which is what I have. And we're all spread out along the path of totality. We're coordinating this all in advance. It's sponsored by University of California, Berkeley, Google, and the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. So what we're going to do is we're focusing on, it's hard to see this little tiny picture, but when you get the handout on the back, the black and white part, there's something that looks like a diamond ring. So that's the diamond ring effect. What's happening is just before or just after totality, as the moon is moving at the last little bit across the sun, there's some light coming through the mountains in the moon, and you see this interface between the photosphere, chromosphere of the sun, and the innermost part of the corona. So these guys are looking at the inner corona. We're actually looking at this part, which is this interface between the photosphere and the innermost part of the corona. And so we have 800 photographers who are going to be using their own equipment. And if any of you who have such equipment or might be interested, we're still taking applications for people to participate with us through August 6th. So anyway, what's going to happen is Google will take all of the pictures afterwards and do all the post-processing that Galen talked about, so you don't have to do it, you just upload your pictures. They do all the work and they put together this movie, and we have so many people across the eclipse path that we should have a very high definition movie of the whole 90 minutes of the eclipse at the end, focusing on this inner corona part of it, and then all the images will be stored in a large database and available for any kind of science projects in the future that people want to use those things for to study solar physics. So that's what our project is about.
Very, very.
Let's see, the question about what size lens to use, I mentioned that we're going to have some examples in these talks. I also, for those of you who are really into photography, for photographing the eclipse, if you're not, I would say if you have a chance to be in totality, by all means try to get there. As Galen said, in 2024, it goes across the US again and the East Coast, but it's really cloudy throughout the entire path. So this is really your chance to see an eclipse in the US. But if you can get to totality, that would be great. If you do, then, I lost my train of thought. If you want to try to, if you've not done a lot of photography, it's best to just get binoculars, put a little solar filter on them, take the solar filter off during the totality, and just watch the eclipse and experience it. See what happens with the birds and I was in a place one time where the cows started going for the barn. All sorts of weird things happen. The temperature drops dramatically. The wind comes up. So if you're going to take a picture, you need a really steady tripod. I did this in Bulgaria in 1999. The wind came up much stronger than I thought because I was on a coastal area in Bulgaria, and it vibrated the camera to the point where all my pictures are blurry, which is why, just sitting it there and ignoring the motion of the sun doesn't work, because your pictures come out blurry as the sun moves across.
So say one final word about viewing the eclipse safely, because you just talked about binoculars.
Yeah, so if you're somewhere where the partial eclipse is occurring, and this is mentioned several times in this handout, there are these little eclipse glasses down in the corner here. Those will be given out free, and you have some in the back here, right? So if I could borrow somebody's who's got some, we're talking about these things. They will be given out free at the 2 peak talks. And the problem with those is that when you look up at the eclipse, you see this little tiny thing. The sun is a little tiny image, and it's kind of hard to see what's going on. What you can do, and we'll talk about this in the talks at peak, you can get some solar filters that you can put over your binoculars, and during the partial phases you use those filters, and now you have a really good view of the surface of the sun and any sunspots that might be there and so on. So that's a much better way of looking at the eclipse. I actually have binoculars that are 10x binoculars with image stabilization, so my shaky hands don't mess them up.
You can actually make solar filters for binoculars rather cheaply. You order these sheets of black polymer material from Amazon or wherever. You look for solar filter paper, solar filter material, and then you can cut them up into little circles, mount them on tuna fish cans, or some other can that fits your binoculars more or less exactly. I mean, you want to then put some felt or something in it so that it doesn't fall off. But that it's easy to take off during totality, and so anybody can do that. That's it's relatively inexpensive. I think the sheets cost like $10 each, and then buy some tuna fish, make a tuna fish casserole. And
there you go. There you go. Yeah, and in fact, I have some. I have some of those.
I think.
What?
A lot of the supplies that you're going to need are already.
Yes.
Hard to get a hold of.
If you want to do that, you might want to order them right away, because
right away.
In Amazon, they'll sell the little things to go over the binoculars, or a telescope, or a spotting scope, or whatever, and these sheets. But a lot of them say unavailable, and I suspect they're not going to be available again before the eclipse. So you might want to check out Amazon or B&H Photo or something. And
I bet they'll manufacture a lot between now and
they're
then.
trying. They're really trying.
Thousand Oaks in Arizona has said that.
Yeah. So.
When it's at totality.
Right. During totality.
July 1st is the last you can order.
Yeah, after this diamond ring effect, during totality, when you have these big pictures of the black moon in front of the sun and you have the corona, that is perfectly safe to view with your naked eyes, with binoculars, with telescopes. You know, I have a 200x telescope, which I may or may not bring with me, but that's fine. Those are all just fine. But be sure you have a timer. And in fact, if you have a cell phone, which I left on the table back there, there is a timer that you can get in the App Store for iPhone and Android that will count down and say, you know, if you're in the path, it knows from GPS where you are. If you're in the path of totality, it says 5 seconds to totality, 4, 3, 2. And then right at the end of the eclipse, which is the important part, it says eclipse ends in 5, 4, 3, 2. And you know, and it tells you, put your filter back on before the end of the eclipse. Otherwise, how do you know when 2 minutes and 16 seconds or whatever are finished with? So those timers are good. And then it'll also tell you in Los Alamos, for example, when the maximum is and all that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, but you'll be keeping your filters on the whole time.
Yeah, here you never take the filter off. You always
Right.
leave it on during the entire eclipse. Yeah, Carolyn.
So this is close to noon, you know, 11:30 here, right? Well,
Yeah.
it's gonna be, the sun's gonna be straight up. It's gonna be hot. Oh, it starts to cool off a little bit with more moon shadow. And it's really hard to do this, you know. And so you might want to lie down or get a lounge chair or something. So you want to.
That's a good idea.
You got a camera. You got to get this thing to stay with this lens pointed straight up in the sky. So you may need sandbags or something like that to balance to counterbalance the weight of the lens, especially if you have a nice long one.
Yeah, a tripod is absolutely essential, and you know, some people suggest weighting the tripod with a gallon jug of water or something like that, so it'll be extra stable.
Yeah, and in fact, if you have a camera that has a viewfinder that you can pull out and change the different angles, you don't have to lay on the ground and look up, you know.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of good things like that, and we'll talk about all of those sort of things for photographing the eclipse on this talk on August 1st. We'll show you examples of how to do all of that.
A lot of people set up early, of course, and find the sun and
Yeah.
go around. And then their camera has to sit there in the sun. So you need something to shade your camera, and you know, and probably a sun shirt or lots of sunblock for yourself too.
Yeah, so all of these things we'll talk about on August 1st, and I'll show you the grill covers that I use to cover my equipment until totality and stuff like that.
Barbecue grill covers.
You had a
I
question?
had a
Right.
question on your CCD camera. What is the pixel density on that? And are you going to be able to you know, look in, you know, versus the modern SLR is, you know, I don't know, some of them are 20 megapixels.
Yeah, so this is 2048 by 2448, and yeah, I don't know what the pitch is.
That's pretty
but,
decent.
Yeah, it's pretty decent. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, everybody, I'm sure there's more questions, but there's experts in the room. Let's thank Galen and let's thank